kita akan buat another topik bersama dengan kawan Japanese kita. Terbawakan salah seorang daripada kawan daripada Jepun. Sekarang dia ada di Jepun lah. A bit unik, dia ni beza sedikit daripada orang Jepun biasa. So nak tahu dia dengan lebih lanjut, kita akan berjumpa dengan dia sekejap lagi. So kalau korang tahu siapakah guest tersebut, jom kita bersama dengan dia. Hi, konbanwa. Can you try to introduce yourself a bit? So I'm sure that some of YouTube viewers of mine want to know you more. ちょっと簡単な自己紹介お願いします。
First of all, thank you Pika-chan. Hai semua, nama saya Hidemi Fuji. Boleh panggil saya Hidemi. Saya berumur 22 tahun. Kini saya merupakan pelajar universiti di Jepun. 今回はよろしくお願いいたします。
はい、よろしくお願いいたします。マレー語すごい上手ですね。But I think your Malay go is quite good. Even your pronunciation also is good. 発音もすごいなんか上手。
Really?
Yeah.
恥ずかしい。
Our topic today that we want to talk, what it's like being half persons in Japan. I often saw a lot not a good things happen towards about half people happen in Japan society. So I want to know more deeper about that. Since that Hidemi-chan is more unique than other Japanese people, so you are half Japanese and half Malaysian. So I want to know more about it. So before we start off our topic for today, can you explain a bit what is half meaning? So maybe some of people don't understand なんかハーフの意味からお説明していいですか？
私は個性だと思ってて、ハーフ、確かに日本とか他の国とかハーフって言われる人はたくさんいると思うんですけど、I feel like even though you are half from other countries, you will have different personalities. Every individual people have different personalities. So I feel that half is something to embrace. For me, half is being yourself. I do speak English and I do speak Japanese. 全体としてハーフイコールその人の個性で大事にすべきものなんじゃないかなっていうふうに考えますね。
なんかどっちとかお父さんとかお母さんはどっちが日本人、どっちがマレーシア人？
私の technically my father is a pure Japanese and my mom is a pure Malaysian.
So your mom is Malaysian Chinese?
Yeah, my mom is a Malaysian Chinese.
Where you was born actually? 日本で生まれるとかマレーシアで生まれるとか。
I born in Malaysia. I born in Damansara.
なんか育ちは日本ですか？マレーシアですか？
もう日本、祖国は日本の2歳に日本に来て、それからずっともう日本の教育、I had all my education in Japanese and then もう technically I brought up in Japan.
What is like being half Japanese in Japan? So can you explain a bit about it?
Actually quite difficult to raise myself as half Japanese in Japan. Although I speak Japanese well, although I had my education in Japan, some people when they know that when I'm half, they will be like, oh, which country? And then I say the country name, they're like, oh, why don't you go back to your country? It's because like you're not technically a real Japanese kind of thing.
マジそれひどい。
For me, yeah, I know. 小学生とかあの時だったから、そこから最初傷ついたけど、and it's just I do actually sometimes feel that I'm more to a Japanese for sure. I just try not to care. If I can, and technically I feel like I'm a Japanese when I stay here. So yeah, 辛いこともあったけど、今はもう全然みんなと仲良く。
Does your friend do know that you is half person? Or since once that your friends already know that you are half? Is it from 小学校とか幼稚園ぐらいとか？
It depends on who I'm mixed with. If somebody asks me, like どこから来たのとか、どこ出身なのとか、なんか例えばいろんな人だと日本人だったら、例えば長野県出身とか千葉県出身とか、It's difficult for me to say. マレーシアで生まれて日本で育ったんだよって言ったら、じゃあハーフなの？ Like it becomes like automatically, so you're half. That's why I'm like, yeah. In that case, if they ask me, I'll just tell them back. Most of my life, a lot of people who actually ask me like, half とか、中学校でも小学校でも高校でも大学でも。
なんか自分はちゃんとね、そのハーフの言葉はどう思うですか？なんか自分が好きですか？その言葉は。
For personally, I don't mind the word half. Just sometimes it's difficult to express words besides using the word half. Maybe it's because I got used in hearing the word. その言葉に慣れちゃった。個人的に別に悪いとかいうふうに思ってないけど、I've heard a lot about the word microaggression, so I technically have to be careful when I talk to other people. For my case, I don't mind at all.
Because it's not all half people in Japan, I'm sure that they accept the word of half. It's like they want to be like who they are belong with. It's not their fault to be half, right?
So man, personally feel that it's really important to embrace where you come from. Being half is something really special. And for me, never actually seen anybody who's from Malaysia, like Malaysian or half. I think half is really unique because it's a mix of. Dakara, I think feel proud, of being half.
What language that you often spoke between your family? 普段は何言語を話しましたか？家で。
家ではほとんどが英語かな。But it's actually more difficult because I speak with my mom in English and I speak with my in Japanese. It's just a mix between English and Japanese. So most of the time I speak with my mom in English, yeah.
So you doesn't speak Mandarin with your mom?
My mom knows how to speak a little bit of Mandarin. She speaks more on Cantonese. That's why I do practice a little bit of Mandarin with her. I don't know whether I could say a platform, but my house is technically a platform for me to learn a little bit of like other languages, I guess. Mom knows Malay, a little bit Chinese, Cantonese, and English.
結構いろんなの言語混ざってるみたいよね、家で。すごいよ。
そうだね。
めちゃロジャクじゃん。ロジャクわかるかな？
ロジャク。そう。
Yeah, it's like really rojak language in your house. Like sometimes you speak English, sometimes you speak Japanese. Sometimes like, does your brain feel exhausted? なんか頭がそんなに疲れてないかな？疲れてるよね。なんかたまにね。
Okay, if I have to translate them right into Japanese or in English, that would be a little bit tiring. But most of the time, なんか自然に来ちゃってるところも慣れちゃったかな。
Then how your dad and your mom communicate to each other? 日本語？英語？
どっちも。けど、お父さんがお母さんと話すときは日本語。お母さんがお父さんと話すときは英語。でもなんか返ってくる答えが、でも英語と英語とかじゃなくて、英語と日本語と英語。ごっちゃごちゃある。
なるほどね。めっちゃ面白いよね、家族。ひでみちゃんの家族になりたいな。
一応別の言語だけど理解し合ってるから。
So far, do you guys feel like any advantage that Japanese people don't have? I'm sure that you have a lot of advantages about this thing.
It's very true that I do have a lot of advantages, but one thing that I could actually say that I do appreciate having this advantage is that I can speak English. For now, English, it is like a common international language that we know. Even though if I don't know their language, I can just communicate with them in English. That's one of the advantages that I'm actually feeling.
Besides the language, other than language, is it any other advantages that you think that is good to being half sometime?
I don't know whether this is a serious advantage. It could be an advantage for me. It's just I can go back to my second country. That is another advantage that I have, I guess. Like when my friends ask me, 夏休みどこ行くの? Do you have any plans? 私マレーシア帰るの. Then they'll be like, 今帰れる国あって私ずっと日本だよ. When I hear something like this, I'll be like, oh, maybe I should just appreciate that I can go back to my own second country, that I have another home to go back. So in that term, I just feel that I do have an advantage.
In terms of your identity, right? Sometimes do you feel struggle for yourself living in Japan? When you growing up in Japan, does you ever think like, hey, what identity I am? Am I identity of Japanese or am I identity of Malaysia? Do you ever felt that kind of feelings before this?
Yeah, actually I did. One of the most heartbreaking experience that I had was when I was communicating with my mother in public using English. Some people just kind of be like why this person speak English even though it's in Japan? Japan equals speaking Japanese kind of thing. During that time, I was still young. I just felt embarrassed because I felt like I wasn't in the same group. I don't feel like I was a Japanese. So I started to talk with my mom in Japanese, even though my mom speaking in English. She'll be like, why you speak Japanese? I'm embarrassed. It's like, you don't have to be embarrassed, but I just didn't understand that feeling. Because of that past struggle, I actually learned to embrace what I have. Being half is something really special to me right now. I do right now identify myself as somewhat a Japanese because I brought up here. I brought up in Japan. While in Malaysia, sometimes I do feel like I can speak with local people. I'm also half Malaysian. I can just be a little bit flexible but technically I'm Japanese. I feel like.
Because of course you're more into Japan side. Most of your time you spend your whole time in Japan. So of course you feel that your identity more towards the Japanese side.
Yes, 本当それはね間違いないんだ。 I wonder how my life will be when I'm in Malaysia.
You've been growing and live in Japan like most of your whole life lah, for 20 years, right? Do you ever felt any discrimination, なんか差別とか as a half Japanese?
I have personally experienced this that need to go back to Malaysia, go back to where I belong. It's because I wasn't speaking Japanese in Japan. Technically, when I'm communicating with my parents or anybody that doesn't speak Japanese, but now I don't experience any of those. When I was younger, I feel like some of my friends and some people, they do have a concept of like Nihongo de shaberu. That terms, I feel like it's quite unreasonable, not really open-minded. Felt a little bit tsurai at that time. Some people, they literally told me that don't speak English in Japan because this is Japan. They just asked me not to speak English. I was quite shocked at that time. I personally experienced.
いや、その人めっちゃひどいよね。
そうだね、ちょっと傷ついちゃった。
めっちゃ悲しいよね。超素手じゃん、素手。You said before that you sometimes like also came back to Malaysia and then you back to Japan. I just want to know like what the difference between Malaysia and Japan that you ever felt.
There's actually quite a few things that I personally different, but one of the things that I feel is the way people interact each other. It's just so difficult to explain in words. 日本とかはやっぱスーパーとか買い物とかするじゃない、するときに一定してなんかこうお互いこうリスペクトをしながらなんかそう話すときすごい丁寧だったり、別にそれは上下関係とかっていうのもあるし、it's one of the tradition of being polite towards people. So that's totally fine for me. When I go back to Malaysia, I feel like everything is just so different in a way that people can talk with each other, like just being themselves. Talk to some people like some uncle, auntie, they'll be really rude to you, and it's just like we can just strike a random conversation with them, and they'll be happy to answer, and they're willing to communicate back, like they're willing to talk back, you know. So that kind of thing sometimes we don't see in Japan because they just technically do what they are doing and then that's it. But in Malaysia, I feel like everybody is just really friendly, you know. Like you are being shaped as that culture already.
Yeah.
So it's quite common to say things which is polite. Like one of my Malaysian friends, like he told me that why there's a lot of arigato or like sumimasen kind of thing. Then I'm like, it's just how we say things.
Yeah. And also I realized something that Japanese people always say like sorry almost every time. マレーシアの人あんまりなんか I'm sorry ってめっちゃ言わないな。Unless like you really do wrong, yeah, you say sorry. In Japan, you do wrong or not wrong, still you say like あ、すいませんって感じ。
そうだね、そうだね。そこね違うよ。
Okay, if you have a chance to live between Japan or Malaysia, which country do you still prefer to live in? どこの国が一番住みたいですか？日本とマレーシアどっちですか？はっきりもいいです。はっきり答えお願いします。
For my answer, I will choose Japan to if I want to live.
痛い、心痛い。I wish Hidemi choose Malaysia.
No. It's just like why I think I want to stay in Japan more longer in this case because of I got used of the system of how the Japanese system is. I feel like I get used in speaking Japanese more. But 日本語の方が慣れてる。When I want to go work, when I find jobs, and when I interact sometimes just between interacting with people now. So I feel comfortable living in Japan. But I will always like to go to Malaysia during maybe like summer holidays, spring holiday, or any time that I'm free, definitely, because it's my second country that's not going to change forever. That also makes me appreciate Malaysia more. It's because I don't go to Malaysia at time, so I will feel very excited when I want to go back next time and just have fun, and then I go back to Japan again and have my normal life.
Okay, I see that. Your final answer is Japan 啦。
final answer は日本です。
はい、次の質問。So that's sometimes like you also came back to Malaysia when you have a summer break. You will come back to Malaysia for your second home, right? So I'm sure that you do have like something that you really miss about Malaysia. マレーシアのことは何が一番恋しいとかありますか？食べ物とか人とか。
一番恋しいって言ったらね。迷ったけど食べ物が恋しいかな。全体としてマレーシアなんか人とか weather なんか天気とか、 もう全部がもう恋しいし、人もいいなっていうふうに思うのもあるけど、食べるのがすごい好きなのね。I love to eat. One of the most exciting part of going back to Malaysia is enjoy the food, I guess. それが一番大きいかな。
Second thing, do you have any things about it that you really miss about it?
Second thing, just really general, but it's the people over there, like the people who I interact with, the whole surrounding of people. Those people are like the way they talk. It's just something different that you don't see in Japan. Things that you don't experience.
なんか3番目とかありますか
3番目ね。
私
たくさんあるけど、3番目はちかちゃんも入ってる。
ちゃんと入った。
ちゃんと入ってる。もちろんもちろん。
Even though みんななんか会ったことないけども、なんか私ひでみちゃんのリストはすごいめっちゃ嬉しいです。
本当？
なんか3番目ぐらいはまあまあいいかな。まだトップ3からトップ3ぐらいはまだ OK。
Okay. No, I mean I'm actually really excited to see you face to face, like for real.
I also want to meet ひでみちゃん next time. I hope so. I could meet you someday. いつかね、わかんないからね。
Yeah.
Either that I go to Japan to meet you, or either you come to Malaysia to meet me.
どっちが先だろうね。
そうだね。So do you ever try to think like maybe one day that you want to work in Malaysia or maybe other country beside than Japan? So do you ever felt like to think about this before?
Actually, the answer is no. That I want to work in other countries beside Malaysia. Any countries that can speak English. It's because my dream job is to be a flight attendant from Bagi. Like I do want to base in Japan. So for now, I'm not thinking of outside. So I'm not thinking of working in other countries. But at first, I did want to work at Singapore Airlines. But I just don't have a good reason for like why I want to be a Singapore Airline air stewardess. Yeah, maybe it's because I like the kebaya. That's why. That's it. In Japan, there are many airline companies. Technically, there are two, which is the major airlines like Japan Airlines and Nippon Airways. So I haven't decided yet, but yeah, I hope I can enroll myself in either one of the airlines.
I wish I could see Hidemi-chan in Malaysia Airline next time. If you have a chance to be reborn again, なんか生まれ変わるから would you prefer to be half Japanese again? Or you just prefer to be like a normal person? どう思いますか
I would choose to be a Japanese if I want to be born again. 生まれ変わったら私日本人になりたいっていうふうに思ってて、それも I actually want to experience being the majority, not being the minority. I want to see from the majority's perspective of how the minority is being treated. I know I will never understand if I'm not that situation. I just want to feel how it feels like being a majority in Japan and I experience more things. Yeah, so technically that's the reason why I chose the Japanese, a pure Japanese, like Nihonjin, instead of being a half, since I was half.
So if you reborn again, then being like normal Japanese persons, I'm sure like we never met, I guess. かな
そうだね。
I think it depends if you don't use hello talk, I'm sure that we never met each other. So that's the point.
I know. That was just like, do we call this as jodoh?
Jodoh pun okay lah, boleh lah. It's really simple, but just want to know that do you happy being a half Japanese and half Malaysian?
The answer will be yes.
Yay! Yes! Yes!
嬉しいって思う理由はたくさんもちろんあるんだけど The most biggest thing is that it's something really special being half. You never really see a Malaysian mix with Japanese. Like technically a Malaysian mix is something. Yeah, that's the thing. Makes me feel like personally like special. I do feel that way. Makes me feel really really happy being half. Like I genuinely appreciate. Like I appreciate my parents. Like I appreciate them meeting each other. I can go to my second country. Like I can interact with Malaysian people more to get to know the language. Besides Malay, also like Cantonese, Mandarin, any language also counts. Because of the aptitudes that I have, that I can speak English, I can interact with many people from different countries and different backgrounds. And that was one of the things that I do appreciate myself being half. Also, the biggest thing is that I do appreciate my mom. She's the one who taught me English and everything. ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます、ひでみちゃんのお母さん。 Thank you so much for today. That was all the questions that I really want to ask. How was like being half Japanese in Japan? I really want to find some half Japanese persons. Almost like 1 year, 2 years, I already thinking like, how should I find half Japanese persons actually in real life? Because I really have tons of questions that I want to ask them directly. Yeah, I would say jodoh, I guess. So we met through Hello Talk and then we knowing each other. So and then you are half Japanese. これやっぱりこれチャンスかなって。This is the right chance for me to ask you about all these questions.
I'm so actually glad that you set up this whole Zoom meeting. Like, I do genuinely appreciate it. 本当にありがとう. Like, it gave me the opportunity to actually speak out how I felt. Although some of them is just like, answer is quite the same. I do actually think that it might be a good opportunity for some viewers to get to know how I was feeling. Yeah, so I do appreciate you setting up this opportunity for me to speak up.
Okay guys, sebentar tadi kita baru saja habis sesi interview bersama dengan Hidemi-chan. Bagaimana dengan video hari ini? Adakah interview ini membawakan untuk korang something yang perspektif yang berbeza dari segi pandangan as a half Japanese yang berada di Jepun? So how was it the interview for today?
And overall, I love the whole question. I love all the questions that you asked me because it's quite challenging. Some of them are quite challenging to answer. It's because I've never thought about it that deeply. As a whole, I did enjoy the whole questions and I hope this opportunity will be something special to the viewers. Yeah, I do appreciate you giving me this opportunity and time to express how I felt.
Stake it! Stake it!
Arigatou.
Okay guys, itu sahaja untuk video hari ni. Terima kasih kerana sudi menonton seperti biasa. Kalau korang menyukai dengan video ni seperti biasa, jangan lupa untuk subscribe channel dekat bawah. And then kalau korang suka juga, jangan lupa untuk berikan like dekat sini dan jangan lupa untuk berikan share dekat sini. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih sangat-sangat kepada kita punya guest Japanese hari ni. Yeah, thank you so much for Hidemi-chan for joining into my video today. Yeah, I have so much fun talking with you. And finally, I know what it's been like being half Japanese in Japanese society. Yeah, たまに辛いよね。ごめんね。
全然大丈夫だよ。But I feel like it's important to embrace it and things that it's one of the gifts.
Oh yeah, everyone, that's it. So we have to say goodbye to Hidemi-chan. じゃあまたね、Hidemi-chan. Thank you so much for today.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye 皆さん。